Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar in which we have Kushagra with us, and we are going to discuss how he got a 760 in his GMAT. Before I get started, I would want to know whether you can hear me clearly or not. So a quick yes in the chat box would be great. So all of you who are there, if you can hear me clearly, can you please write yes in the chat box quickly? And then we can get started. Okay. Okay, I see that you all can hear me, which is great. So let's get started, guys. Once again, welcome to this webinar, and let me first of all talk about how we are going to conduct this webinar. So this webinar is broadly divided into three sections. In the first part of the webinar, I am going to talk about who we are. This is especially for people who are attending the session conducted by GMATWhiz for the first time, and I think it's important they know what we are doing at this point of time. Then we'll jump right into the webinar where we are going to discuss how Kushagra managed to get a 760 and what are the strategy that he followed, and I hope you find that insightful. And at the end, I'm going to keep about 10 to 15 minutes in case you have any other questions which are related to GMAT in prep or GMATWhiz, then feel free to ask that at the end. Okay, so with that, let's get started, guys. So as far as GMATWhiz is concerned, the one way to describe us is that we are the world's only truly personalized course. And what do I actually mean by that? See, I've been in this industry for close to 10 years now, and what I've realized is that whenever a student starts preparing for an exam, they usually face a number of problems, right? You don't know how to start your prep, you don't have a structured study plan, you don't have a dedicated mentor to help you out. So there are numerous issues that you face while kind of preparing for your exam, and we wanted to fix that. So with that in mind, we created a GMATWhiz where you are provided a personalized study plan that is highly catered to your performance. So when you're using our course, depending on how you perform on our course, the course will personalize itself. Then we also provide real-time improvement modules. So for example, if you're taking a quiz and if you don't do say well in it, then we do provide you, more additional video lessons to go through, additional quizzes to practice from, so that you can fix that problem then and there before moving on to the next lesson or the next topic. And the most important thing I feel during your preparation phase is to talk to a mentor, because it's very important for you to understand whether you're going in the right direction or not. And I've seen people coming very late after going through everything going through all the courses, going through all official guides, and then coming up and talking to a mentor and then realizing that they have been following the plan in the wrong way. So if you get a dedicated mentor at the start of your prep who talks to you every 14 to 15 days and tells you whether you're moving in the right direction or not, then that creates a lot of difference. And at GMATWhiz, if you work with GMATWhiz, then you also do get a dedicated mentor. And because of these three factors, we've seen that people have improved a lot. And I wanted to give you a glimpse of what I mean by a personalized plan. So if you look here, if you create a plan at GMATWhiz on our platform, you would see we create the full plan for you, clearly detailing out when will you complete each and every lesson, as you can see, and in which week you need to complete what topics do you need to complete, what lessons do you need to go through, what quizzes you need to go through. Each and everything is very properly shown in the calendar, so you can plan your prep really well. Okay, and it clearly shows when you're going to complete your plan also. So each and everything is provided to you in detail on this plan. And let's say if you want to figure out what you need to do in the next 2 weeks, then we also provide you a weekly breakup of your plan. So you don't have to worry about what do you need to do in the current week, what do you need to do in the next week. We take care of that completely. Okay, so your job would only be to prepare, and wherever we feel that you need more help, we provide you that. Okay, and as you can see, for each and every lesson, as I mentioned, we provide you lots of quizzes, we provide you lots of video lessons also, and you can change your plan on a weekly basis also. So let's say if in a particular week you have say 15 hours, then you can input 15 hours per week and we'll create it, and the plan would change accordingly. If you feel you have 31 to 40 hours in a week, it's your free week, you have time to study more, then just change this plan and we will ensure that your weekly plan as well as your plan that you see on your calendar adapts automatically, which I think is really, really important, so that you don't have to worry about planning at all. Okay. Uh, and because of these facilities that we provide, our students have seen a lot of improvement. In fact, it's one of the most effective course at this point of time. If you go and look at GMAT Club, you'll see our students have an average point of improvement of 107 points, which is like way, way higher than all our competitors. Okay. So if you haven't checked out our platform yet, I would highly recommend that you go visit GMATWhiz. You can try out a free trial and experience the personalization. Okay. With this, let's get into the main part of the webinar. Let me introduce Kushagra to you. Very briefly about him. So he's a graduate from IIT Kanpur and he's currently working as a data analyst in Citicorp in the consumer risk department. And as you all already know, that he scored a 760 with a Q50 and a V42, which I think is awesome. And he plans to get into management consulting. In fact, he would be applying to a lot of European V schools. He wants to do an MIM. He has 1 year of experience, and that's his short-term plan at this point of time. Let me introduce Kushagra to you. And before that, let me very quickly tell you what would be the main focus of this webinar. What are the things that we are going to cover? I'm sure you'd want to love to know what was his preparation strategy. What are the things that he did to reach a 760? And since he has a V42, we will talk briefly about how did he reach V42. And I want you to listen very closely to it because he has some really interesting points, which you might find really insightful. And two more important things which I would want to cover is the importance of self-analysis, error logs. I've seen students come and asking me how should I analyze, in what way should I maintain my error log, when should I take quizzes, how should I take quizzes. All of these things will also be covered, and we'll understand how, in what way Kushagra followed these things. So with this, let's very quickly start off, and let me introduce Kushagra to you. So hey Kushagra, hi, welcome to this
Thank
webinar, and thank you for taking out time for this session. So 760, and congratulations on that. How are you
thank
feeling?
you. It feels great. It feels relaxing. It feels exciting. Because I mean, to be honest, when I started my preparations, what I was hoping for was a 740 or I mean 740 plus, but that was the like benchmark for me. And to get
Hmm.
a 760, I mean when the score first flashed on the screen, I didn't actually I just noticed the score. I didn't even notice the breakup. I just clicked on accept next and just uh, wanted to get done with it. And then actually because of that, for like 2 days I was not in the back of my mind. There was some doubt that yeah, did I really see 760 or was it something different and I misread it? But then yeah, when the final score report came, it was yeah, I was on the seventh sky.
That's great. That's great. Actually, 760 is a very awesome score. Very difficult to get. So kudos to you for getting a 760. Let's start off by talking about your preparation strategy, and I want to cover the whole journey. So can you briefly tell me how did you start your prep? So when did you decide to take it, and how did you go about doing it, at least in the initial phase?
Yeah. So I graduated last year in August, and after that, I started preparing for CAT first of all. So I
Hmm.
knew like in my like fourth year that I wanted to go to a B school. That's what I want to do next. Gain some work
Hmm.
experience and then get into a B school. So I started
Hmm.
preparing for CAT. I gave the exam and I scored pretty well, but not well enough for the top three IIMs. So
Hmm.
after that, in December and January, I started exploring more options. That what if not CAT, then what? Then I stumbled
Hmm.
upon like I gave GMAT a thought that yeah, I mean I knew about GMAT and everything, but I what I knew was that it's basically for an MBA, which for that you have to get like 3 or 4 years of experience, and then
Correct.
you can
Hmm.
go for it.
Hmm.
But then in January, I mean, the CAT preparation was over, so I thought that let's get started with it at least. Let's look around material and everything. started with it. And
Your voice is breaking. Can't hear you.
is it better now?
Yeah, this is better. You kind of froze, but now you're back.
Okay. So yeah, so what I was saying that yeah, I was more into a plan that yeah, I'll keep preparing for it for a year or two. I'll just get in touch with the material. I'll just familiarize myself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so I'll just get myself familiarized with the material and prepare for a year or two, and then give the GMAT. But then around February, my one of my batchmates got into an MIM program. That's where I realized that yeah, I can still uh, go for a B school right now as well. I can
Right
apply
now.
for them right now as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in February, I became a little more serious about GMAT. In around March, I bought the OGs, started uh, doing those,
Mm-hmm.
and then in a month, I realized that yeah, just with the OGs, I wouldn't be able to improve. So
Oh,
and especially in the verbal section, because quant
bubble.
was particularly a little easier for me,
Mm-hmm.
having prepared for CAT and being from a STEM background. So quant was not a problem, but for verbal,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see any improvement just with the OGs. So
Okay.
that's when I decided to get enrolled in a course in March. In April, and I enrolled in GMATWhiz, the
So
verbal
when
course.
you Mhm. So when
Yeah.
you say you do not see any improvement, what kind of improvement? So when you were just doing OG, what was the issue that you faced?
So specifically talking about the verbal section,
Verbal
so I
section.
read, yeah. So I read. So for me, the verbal section was not about finding the correct answer was difficult for me. That was not the case. But to pinpoint very small mistakes or very small points which can make a huge difference in the final outcome of the answer, that
Mm-hmm.
was the main critical point that was keeping me behind. And with the
Mm-hmm.
OGs, the problem is that you do a question, you see the solution, and then you realize that yeah, this is where I went wrong. But there
Mm-hmm.
is no overall pattern from which you can learn and on which you can improve.
No structure,
So
basically.
yeah, don't know structure. Yes.
No structure. Okay. Okay. So how did GMAT come into picture? What? Mhm.
So yeah, I started exploring different courses, read reviews about different platforms and everything, and obviously I read about GMATWhiz. So the reviews were really good, and also one of the factors was that cost-wise, it was the most effective compared to all the others. So
Mhm.
that's why I enrolled in that, and I knew that I want a a basic structure which I can follow for my improvement, and yeah, GMAT
Mhm.
was more than sufficient for that for
Okay.
me.
So can you tell me how did GMAT help you get that structure? So basically, how
Yeah.
did it help you become more methodical?
Uh, so the overall structure is very well aligned in terms of how you want to go on with your preparation. It
Mm-hmm.
goes on section wise, so that's the best thing. And one of the major factors that helped me was uh, the presence of quizzes just after each module, or presence of practice questions just after each module.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what helped me the most in my learning phase.
Mm-hmm.
And so I when I first enrolled in the course, the verbal course has I think only just one mock test included. But I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to
Correct.
get more practice, so I emailed Piyush and I asked him if he could provide me with 5 mocks, and he was generous enough to give me those 5 mocks. So that was the overall material was more than sufficient for me. Yeah.
Okay. So let's get into more into details. I want to understand when you were in the learning phase. Okay. So when you were going through the video lessons and when you're going through the quizzes, what was your primary focus at that point of time?
So as I said, for me it was not the case that I couldn't really find the correct answer. For me, it was
Mhm.
that if you give me, instead of 65 minutes, if you give me 90 minutes, 100 minutes for the verbal section, I would probably get an accuracy good enough for a V37, 38. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, so for me, I had the basic problem was that I didn't follow a structure towards solving a question, and because of
Mhm.
that, I was not very confident when I chose an answer.
Mhm.
So that's where GMATWhiz came into picture by providing me a correct method to approach any question, to pinpoint what exact locations in a question can help you in deriving the correct answer. And because of that, it obviously improves your confidence when you're selecting an answer. You know that, yeah, I followed this method, and it led me to this answer. This should be correct, and you can
Correct.
just mark it and move on.
So that brings me to an important question here. So when you're solving these questions during the learning phase, how much focus were you giving on your timing? Because that's a question which almost everybody asks me. They are very concerned. They come up and say, "Hey, I am preparing. You have told me a method to follow. It's nice, but I end up taking a lot of time." So what was your approach? What did you do? Were you focusing on time, or was it something else?
So yeah, but when I was learning a particular section, for example, say I started with, I think, sentence correction first. So when I
Mm-hmm.
was, say, for example, learning that, I didn't really focus on the timing. I What I wanted was to get my accuracy to a level which is good enough. So uh, I don't know. I mean, timing wise, even if I took like 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes for a question, that didn't matter to me at that point much. Especially if you analyze. So, for example, if you enroll and you go on with the course, you have the mocks after each module, and if you analyze
Mm-hmm.
those, it's okay to take like 2.5, 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. But the main thing is that what you have learned, you are able to apply that in the question. And
Correct.
uh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is important for everybody who is there, and I want you to, make note of this because that the first and the primary thing which we advocate also is that you should focus more in the initial phase on learning the concepts and learning how to apply them properly, even if it takes more time. And I'll talk about how to reduce this also, and Kushagra, I'm sure will take that up. But it's very important. Make sure that you learn your concepts well, you learn how to apply them well, and then you should focus on your time. By the way, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat box. We will definitely take up those questions in between or at the end also. Okay. So anything that you want to ask us, feel free to do that. Okay. Okay, we have understood that what you need to do in the learning phase. So what did you do after that? Once say you have completed your verbal section, what did you do? Did you move on to doing practice questions? Did you went to straight to mocks? What was your strategy?
So just to recap on how my learning phase went, I
Mm,
gave about 2 months for the whole course, for the whole verbal course, in which I covered
mm,
all the three sections in like 3 weeks each.
mhm,
And then so I had like 3 hours per day, apart from my full-time job, to
mm,
give for preparation. In those three
mhm,
hours, 1 to 1.5 hours would go into watching the videos and completing the course, giving the questions and everything. And
mm,
along with that, 1.5 hours would go in practicing those very concepts on the OG. Trying to, I didn't really try to find those particular questions which I just now, read about or just now learned about. But in
mhm,
general, I didn't leave the OG at all.
mhm.
I took that parallelly with the course.
It makes sense.
And once Yeah. So
Mhm,
once that was done in around 2 months, then after that, for the 1 month, I made a full schedule, because now I knew that I have all the knowledge that I need for tackling the
mhm,
questions. I just need to build up on my behavior, build up on my timing, and build up on my strategy. So for
mhm,
those, the best option is to give mocks and analyze those mocks. So for the last 1 month, I prepared a whole schedule on a calendar, in which I decided on what days I would give a mock. In fact, which exact mock would I give on that day,
Okay,
and
that's
whether
pretty
it would be
meticulous.
just quant, yeah, whether it would be just quant a verbal or a complete 3.5 hours test. So all those things I scheduled on a whole calendar and then just followed it. Yeah.
Okay, so when you talk about analysis, so say for example today you decide to take a mock and you went ahead and took the full mock. You did your quant, you did your verbal. How did you go about analyzing those mocks? What were you looking for during your analysis?
Uh, so one particular thing that I always did was the day that I gave the mock. Obviously, when I was finished with the mock, it was my office timing, and I had to leave that. But at the
Hmm.
end of the day, before going to bed, I used to just mark down all the mistakes that I did on that mock in an error log. And the day after that test, would go into just analyzing that. And if you need to, go back and refer to the lectures or to the videos again to improve on that. Whether you want to do OG questions or in any way that you want to improve on that particular part. So the next day went into completely doing that, and uh, yeah. Other than that, uh,
Did you maintain
that's
an
pretty much
error
it.
log
How
or
I do.
something?
Yes, yes. I very wholeheartedly maintained an error log for all the mocks, especially that I gave, uh, because
Can you
it's really
elaborate a
important.
bit
Yeah.
more? How did you,
Yes.
log your errors?
So I did it on a Google spreadsheet. Not a very uh, formal way of doing it in a sense, because see, what I want to suggest is the GMAT Club has a proper error log sheet format in which you can do questions on the platform, and then it automatically goes into an error log and everything. But
Hmm.
I started with that pretty late. So if you can start with it as early as you can, because that
Hmm.
error log and the error log that you keep from your mocks, that helps a lot
Hmm.
in two ways. The first
Hmm.
is that you can always refer back to it to analyze which is the weakest part and what you want to improve on. And the
Hmm.
second thing is, as soon as you write something or as soon as you note down something, it kind of reinforces the lessons that you learn from it, and it helps in recapitulating all your mistakes, and uh, kind of reinforces that thing in your mind. So
Got it.
there are two benefits of keeping an error log.
Okay. 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 So, guys, again, I would want to emphasize on this also because I'm a strong advocate of this that you should actually write down each and every mistake and don't categorize it as a silly mistake. You should actually write down what is the exact mistake
Yes,
that you're making.
yes,
So, if you can make a category of it, you can in the long run see what are the different kind of mistakes that you're making, and then you can work on it. Uh, you were maintaining an Excel sheet, your spreadsheet, which is great. But did in any way the dashboard that you have at GMATWhiz or the analysis that you got post your GMATWhiz mock, did that in any way help you understand your weaknesses?
yes. Obviously, I mean, apart from the mocks, the new platform that is there automatically analyzes all the questions that you have done on the platform and suggests improvements. I mean, I was pretty impressed and surprised by seeing that it suggested me the topics on which I want to improve with time, on which I want to improve with accuracy, and an overall where I can improve in both. So it was pretty categorized, and with that helped me a lot. Because first of all, I didn't need any error log to analyze my mistakes. It did that for me and gave me a personalized feedback. And yeah, it was really helpful. The feedback system is really great.
That's great. So, guys, those who haven't seen, the new platform, just take about 1 minute to show it, Kushagra. I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
And then, we will go back and talk about more about your analysis. So, guys, this is the new platform, and what Kushagra was talking about it is that it is important for you to understand, categorize your mistakes, categorize your strengths, weaknesses properly. So, a lot of people just focus on their accuracy or their skill score, and they think, okay, if I'm getting a 50 in say a particular topic, I'm weak in that. They do not categorize it meticulously in three different sections. And the dashboard does it for you at GMAT. It very clearly shows you in which area you need more improvement on. So the solidify concepts are area where the concepts are weak. Fine-tune concepts are those concepts where you are doing pretty well, but you can push your score a little more because these are your strengths, and you can improve your score and take it to 80 or 90 also. And timing is also one thing. I'm sure I'm going to talk a bit more about timing post this, but timing is also another factor that you need to be aware of, in which topics that you're taking more time, in which topics that you're taking way less time. And notice that we even show where you're taking way less time, because those are the areas where you might be making mistakes and solving questions quite quickly. So it is, in my opinion, very important to be able to categorize it. So things which are outside GMAT, obviously you may need to maintain error log, but whatever you're doing on our platform, be it official guide, be it the course questions, Viz quiz, the mocks, each and everything very clearly will tell you what are your weaknesses and where you need to work more on. Okay, so that's about it about the dashboard. Let's go back to our discussion. So one thing we did not cover is how did you improve your time, because that's the next question. I'm sure all of these students who are watching it might be interested in knowing. So you did not focus in the learning phase. What happened in the fine-tune phase when you were doing mocks?
So like for each question on the GMAT verbal section, you have around 1 minute 40 seconds, 1 minute 30 seconds for each, and
Mm-hmm.
it is theoretically as well as practically impossible to follow a methodical approach every time you encounter a question on the exam, right? So
Mm-hmm.
once you have done that in the learning phase, you don't focus on timing, you just focus on getting it methodically correct, and once that is well built in your system, then once you start to try to improve your time, you'll automatically find yourself following that exact methodical approach,
Mm-hmm.
but in a lesser time, by skipping steps, by you know just by seeing the question on sentence correction, that yeah, this is the point where I have to focus, this is where I can improve the sentence
It
on,
becomes
or
very
for
intuitive, I
example,
think.
yes, it becomes very intuitive, it kind of builds into your gut feeling. And yeah, I mean, once you have completed the course, once you are happy with yourself that yeah, I have learned all of the system, then trust your gut, because it is built into that, and just try and improve your time.
Okay, that's good. So I have one question in the chat box. I would want you to take it up. Is that someone's asking, Laurent is asking, basically, how much did your dashboard show before you took the exam? What was your score on the dashboard? And or you can talk about your mock scores also. And how did you manage the last few weeks before the exam?
Okay, so my dashboard, the verbal section was pretty accurate. It showed around, I think, 42, 42. So
Mm-hmm.
that was pretty accurate. The quant section, I'm assuming that I didn't really use the platform for quant, so that was a little lower, around 48, around I think it showed.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's probably because I didn't use the
You
platform for
just use
quant
the
that much.
quiz, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. And coming to the mocks, I feel that the GMATWhiz mocks are slightly more difficult than the actual GMAT. So my best score on the GMAT with mocks was around, I think, 720 or 730, if I remember
Mm-hmm.
correctly.
Okay.
So there's
Okay.
and the other thing was that I didn't. So I got like 5 mocks on the platform, and I used that up uh, pretty early. So I did the last mock around 3 weeks earlier than my actual GMAT. So
Okay.
that obviously affects, and so in the last months that you're preparing is the actual timeline that you will see an improvement in your scores. The first
Mm-hmm.
2 months when you're just learning, you'll not see a very drastic change, because that's still building in your system. You've not improved your timing. If you give mocks, even then, maybe you'll do sentence correction fantastically, but the other two sections won't be with you.
Mm-hmm.
So the last month is actually where you can see a linear growth in your score. And
Okay.
what was the last part of the question?
How did you manage the last few weeks before the exam?
So last few weeks, it's important to be strategically sound as well as emotionally sound in the last few weeks, because that can affect a lot. So strategically, what I mean is you have to very carefully place the official mocks or the other mocks that you're going to give in those last few days, how you're going to analyze. Because uh, so I gave the official mock just a weekend before, right? And it really depends on you, because wherever, if you see on the internet, you will find suggestions that you should give it 3 or 4 days before your actual GMAT. I give it a week before my actual GMAT, and that's because for me, I can't really study 2 to 3 days before my tests. So that
That's
becomes
not
a
even recommended, I would say.
yeah.
That's not
So
recommended.
I gave it a week before, and then used the next 2 or 3 days to completely analyze, to get a little more practice on the AWA and IR sections, and just not give too much attention to the quant or verbal, I mean theoretical part. I just kept on practicing. So
Okay, and I think you took the mocks exactly at the time that you wanted to take the actual exam, right?
yes, yes, yes. I even studied
Which
at the
I,
exact time that I wanted to take the test.
so I think that's very important. I have a point which I would want to highlight is that in the last few weeks, when you're in the mock phase, when you're in the practice phase, then you can actually set your time in such a way which clashes with the time that you want to take your exams. If you plan to take exam at 11 a.m., then I think you should keep your study plan around 11 a.m. every day so that your brain is working at that point of time,
Yes.
which I would be important. There's one more question. Ayush is asking, how did GMATWhiz help build accuracy in verbal? Say you found SC difficult, how did the course help you improve it, in turn help you achieve your desired score?
Okay, so I yeah, I mean, to be honest, the structure that the course has on GMAT is very reinforcing, in the sense that whenever you see a video, whenever a module gets completed, immediately after that there are two sets of quizzes, one as practice questions and one as a quiz. So
Boost.
that helps a lot in reinforcing. And what I followed was, while watching the videos, I used to take down notes, and once the module is finished, I didn't give uh, the quizzes that are after the module on the same day. Once I finished the module, I packed up my studies. Then the next day I used to start with revising what I had noted down for the previous modules, and uh, then give the questions. So that kind of worked for me. But what I want to say is the structure is pretty good, and if you follow it and do whatever suits you best, I think it'll help you.
Okay. Okay, that's great. So see, basically, Ayush, one more point which I want to add here is that you have to, if you're finding anything difficult, it's important to, go back to that particular topic, revise it, if required, practice more questions on it. But before practice, make sure that your concepts are in place, because that's very important. Don't overly focus on just practicing a lot of questions and hoping that will improve. That I think is very important. Concept first, making sure application is good, and then you should move on to the practice phase to improve your timing. We've been talking about verbal. I'm sure our audience would want to know: did you do anything specific for Quant, or did only OG and mocks were enough for you? And if anybody wants to prepare for Quant, how should they go about doing it?
So for me, quant was not a very big problem, because I mean, I was preparing for CAT, so I had back preparation which was helping me. And being
Mhm.
from a STEM background, I think that also gave a little advantage to me for quant. I didn't really focus on studying quant, or you know trying to learn new concepts, or anything like that throughout the journey. But what I did was, during the learning phase, even I used to give like half an hour or 45 minutes each week on the weekends, to just I don't want to leave quant behind. I just wanted to brush up
Makes
on my
sense.
skills, yeah,
Hmm.
get a little practice every week. But then that's for me, because I had a little background to help me. Uh, Other than that, yes, I even in my learning phase, I didn't stop giving mocks. But once I finished the section, I used to give a mock. So a mock from time to time also helped improving my strategy for quant, improving my timing, etc. And then once I
Hmm.
was done with the learning phase, once I was in the practicing phase, then yeah, that it is just about knowing where you're making mistakes and improving upon them.
Okay. 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 That's great. So to summarize, I would say for all of you listening, if you are preparing, if you're done with quant, I think it's important that you keep in touch with it. A lot of people who are studying for both quant and verbal, they complete one section, they move to the other, and then they, after completing one, realize they've forgotten a lot of quant. So that ideally should not happen. Make sure that you spend half an hour a day or maybe 2 to 3 hours a week, whatever works for you, but make sure that you are always in touch with it. And if you're preparing from scratch, then obviously you need to follow the similar methodology that you're following for verbal. I think make sure that you follow a methodical structure or use a course to get done with it. I have a question in the chat box, and I'm going to take it up. Is the practice from OG advanced questions recommended in addition to GMATWhiz and OG? Well, in my opinion, yes. I would say but it's recommended only when you're done with your GMATWhiz and OG. You don't have to do it simultaneously in my end. Once you're done with the whole course, once you're done with the official guide questions, and you need more practice, then I would definitely recommend going through OG advanced questions also. Did you do advanced questions, Kushagra?
Yes,
Oh,
yes. I actually bought the complete set of the three books.
okay.
So for me it was basically I used to practice like an hour or 1.5 hours daily. So the OG finished quite early. So
Got it.
I needed something to keep my train going. Yeah, so
Okay.
that's where.
Okay. Okay, that's good. So I think that's about it from mine. So any tips that you want to get, any final thoughts that you want to put across to the audience that's hearing this, that how or what should they definitely do to ensure that they get a 750, 740 plus.
I mean, there is, yeah. So what I want to specifically add is what I think I feel matters very much is how you prepare yourself, not just mentally but also emotionally for the test. And what I mean by saying that is you have to focus on a proper strategy. You have to follow a proper strategy. You have to build your confidence in a way that it it is at the highest point when you're about to give the test. Right. So right from planning 3 weeks before the test, 2 weeks before the test, the day before the test, so all those things really matter in your performance. So just to give you an example, one mistake that I did was I actually could have scored Q51 in the GMAT because
Hmm.
I did score it consistently in the official test as well as at the mocks, but I kind of rushed into the test. I was not properly settled when I started the test, and that's
Hmm.
I don't know the reason for that. Maybe I was a little nervous because it was online or something. But there's
Hmm.
it's very important to keep yourself calm before the test, and all those things that you find, that the suggestions that you uh, find from a reliable source, that those all matter. So you can give them a thought and yeah, trust them
Okay, okay,
as well as trust
that's
yourself.
great. Yeah, I think that's very important. You should trust yourself. I see people questioning themselves a lot when they are not performing that well. What I would want to say that this exam is like a marathon. I would. It's not something that
Yes.
you start today and you would improve in 1 week or two. One good thing which I found very. In your plan, in your preparation, is that you planned it really well, and I think that's very important. You set the right expectations. So those of you listening, I would say make sure that you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses. So you should know if you are particularly good at something. If you're good in quant, then obviously you need to focus on verbal. If you need improvement in both, you should actually accept the fact that you need improvement in both, and then plan each and everything accordingly, so that you're able to what you need to do today, what you need to do next day. Those things are pretty in front of you. As far as study plan is concerned, I'm sure Wiz would help you out in creating a study plan. But in general, for your mocks and everything, I think it's a pretty good thing that you actually wrote down what mock you need to do every day. That's pretty meticulous of you. One question: which section did you attempt first? I have in the chat box. Did you go ahead
So
with
I
quant or
attempted
verbal?
quant, then verbal, and then IR and AWS.
I
So
and AW.
that's
Okay.
yeah, and the thought process behind that was, so I was very confident in quant, so I wanted to start uh, the test on a confident note. So
Hmm.
that's why I chose quant first.
Did you experiment with this during the mock phase, or
No,
was it
I
like
was
always?
yeah, it is always quant first because uh, it kind of, yeah, it's basically built in that I wanted to start confident, and I knew that right when I go into the test, my mind won't be working at 100% capacity, and I needed my
Capacity.
100% capacity for the verbal section
Verbal
majorly.
section. Okay.
So that's
Okay.
why.
So basically, there are two strategies, and this is one of them, which usually works a lot. So if you're somebody who needs, take some time for your juices to run, and then you get into the mode. In that case, yes, obviously you should start with your strength because that boosts your confidence and helps you start thinking quickly. Also, the other strategy which I've seen work with a lot of people. So Meher, I'm just covering it in this. If you feel that you get tired in the second sections, because I have students who come up and say that I get pretty exhausted in the second section. So if that's the case, then ideally you may, if you want to experiment in the mock and see if you want to start off with your weaker section, get done with it, and then move ahead with the one that you're strong at, because you can do that with a tired mind. So I would say experimentation works. You can experiment to do and see it. But the first one obviously is a good if you want to build your confidence. Okay, I'll wait for another minute. If there are any more questions, please feel free to ask. In the meantime, I'm sharing our, Calendly link. If you want to talk to us, if you're interested in knowing more about GMATWhiz, I would highly recommend booking a session with us, and we can let you know how we can help you out. But any questions related to GMAT prep, related to mocks, related to GMATWhiz, please feel free to ask. I'm also sharing a support ID. Maybe later on, if you want to ask any questions, you can write to us also. I've shared that in the chat box. Okay. Okay. I don't see any more questions. Later on, if something comes up, I would get in touch with you, Kushagra, and
Yeah.
we can respond it from our end. Thanks a lot for coming for this session. Appreciate it for taking out your time. Okay. So I'm ending the session now, guys. Feel free to write to us, and if you have any questions regarding this. Okay. Take care then. Bye.